Mm. Hey, well, good morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock. Today's April 7th, Wednesday, April 7th, and it's 2021. And you guys are my biology 1161, section 90, the human anatomy lab, a Wednesday morning anatomy lab. And boy, did you miss me? It's been a while, huh? It's been, what, 3 weeks since I've seen you last? Remember, let's see, yeah, I'm recording and sharing, so you should be able to see all this. Well, last week we were off for Good Friday, and the week before that we were off for spring break, and then the week before that, that's when we did the brain, the eye, and the ear. And that was the first thing we did after our second practical. So today, we're picking up. How timely. We just finished the circulatory system in my lecture, and so we're going to do the circulatory system in lab. And isn't that sweet? And so how are we going to do this? Well, basically the same way we did the brain, the eye, and ear lab. I'll do like a split screen where you can see the pictures and then the handout. Remember the handout. Let me go to let's see. Let me go to my courses. Okay, here's your my courses page. See that? And remember, look, material for practical 3, images for practical 3. You click on material, that's where all your handouts are, your checklist. And then today, there's one that says circulatory, respiratory. You click on that, and then there's 3. These are the 3 for all the information for your final. And then after this week, next week, I think what we're going to do today is I'm going to do just the circulatory portion today, because that's going to take a little bit. And then I'm going to do the respiratory with the digestive, and then next week, and then the week after that, the urogenital. I think that's out the plan. But anyway, here's all your stuff. You click on this one, and this will show up. Ta-da, like this. It says cardiovascular and respiratory. And like I said, we're going to do all the circulatory today, and then we'll do all this respiratory stuff next week. Okay, so there's that. And then the images, you click on images for practical 3, click, and then remember, this is what we saw before. And so you can do all this. We did the brain, the eye, ear, and then it brings us to the circulatory stuff. And so what I'm gonna do again is I'm gonna split my screen here so I can have images on one side and my handout on the other. Look at it like that. So there we go. So here we are. Now, this is the handout that I typed it up years ago, and just about every semester or so, I would tweak it a little bit one way or the other, add things, take things off, or whatever. And I would use it in my lab, and basically what I would do in a face-to-face lab is give my students this handout just like before, and I say, look, these are the things you need to know, and I go through the list and point out everything. However, since we're just studying pictures this semester, I didn't label any of these pictures. I took them from somewhere else that were already labeled, and I would normally point out this stuff, but all this stuff's on there, it's just not pointed out. So if it's not pointed out on the picture already, I just deleted it. Well, I drew a line through it. So the stuff that has lines drawn through it, I won't ask you, okay? Does that mean we don't have to know it? I'm not going to ask you. I'm never going to tell you, no, you don't need to know something. You should know it. Yeah, you should know it, and you should want to learn it on your own. It's like an honor system. How about that? But it won't be on a test. The only thing that'll be on a test that I consider fair game is the stuff that's, labeled on here, or at least the stuff that's on your list. The stuff that's on your list and it's labeled. It's quite possible there could be something pointed out that it's not on the list, but anyway. Well, let's see. Let's begin. The structures of the heart. And I got it broken down, blood vessels by groups. But beginning structures of the heart, and again, you've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pictures, different angles of the heart to see different things. The first thing I list is the apex of the heart. The apex is the tip that's pointed down, but it's like the point of the heart right there. See, apex of the heart, that's the point. It's not labeled there, but you can see it's a pretty good point right there. You can see that. It's labeled there. They label it there. See, apex of the heart, that's just a little point for the heart. And the base of the heart is the opposite of that, but they don't point at that. Then these are tissue layers of the heart. I talked about all that in lecture, and I talked about the auricles in lecture. They don't point that out. But they do point out the atria, the right and left atrium and right and left ventricles, okay? Let's see. Here it points to the auricles, these fleshy things, and labels them as atria. It's technically not true, but the hollow parts of the hearts would be underneath here, in here. So right atrium, left atrium, and corresponding to them underneath, this big meaty part, that's the ventricles. This is the right ventricle right here. Over here is the left ventricle here. Again, atrium, ventricle, ventricle. And then this is, you're looking at the left side. So this is the left atrium, left ventricle. It's the back of the heart. The back of the heart, most of the left atrium is in the back of the heart. And then underneath here, you can see, again, left ventricle. Just another view of the back. Now this is good because this model's opened up so that actually you can see the spaces. This is the cavity here, cavity here, cavity here, cavity. So all of this, well, right here is the ventricle. And then here's the ventricle, atrium, ventricle, ventricle. See that? Okay. And then the interventricular septum. The interventricular septum, you see right there, they point this out. That's the wall, the actual physical partition that separates the two ventricles. So that literally means interventricular, means between the ventricles. A septum, in anatomy, a septum is a wall, a partition of some sort, okay? And then look, the pulmonary semilunar valve and the aortic semilunar valve, I drew a line through it because you can't see it. But let me show you something. See this large artery coming out, big red one? That's the aorta. And this big blue one, that's the pulmonary trunk. At the base of both of these vessels are valves that open up and allows blood to enter. The pulmonary trunk takes blood from the right ventricle. The aorta takes blood from the left ventricle. And there's a valve that opens here. And then if you could see at the base of this one, there's another one too, but you can't see it. So this little white, it's like 3 little white cusps. And this one's kind of missing right there for some reason. But this is the pulmonary semilunar valve. And there would be an aortic semilunar valve on that side. We just can't see it. But that's what that is. And then the tricuspid and bicuspid valves, those are valves that separate the atria from the ventricles. And so on the right side of the heart, there's the right atrium, right ventricle. In between the two, it's pointing to something I can't really tell. It doesn't really look that good, but anyway, you see a hole anyway between these two chambers. On the right side, that would be the tricuspid valve. Tricusp means like, say it's 3 cusps. And then they're pointing to something over here. I'm not sure what they're pointing at, but they're calling it a bicuspid valve. That's where the bicuspid valve would be. between the left atrium and left ventricle would be the bicuspid valve. Some books call the bicuspid valve the mitral valve. Actually, most cardiologists refer to it as the mitral valve. It's just an old school term that it's kind of been lingering around. And so on the left side of the heart, that's usually what they call the mitral valve. But since it has two cusps, it can be called the bicuspid valve. Or since they are both AV valves, AV stands for atrioventricular, you have two AV valves, a right AV valve, left AV valve. The right AV valve is the tricuspid valve. The left AV valve is the bicuspid or mitral valve. I talked about that in the lecture. And then these things, the papillary muscles and the chordae tendineae, they don't point them out. So if you want to know what those look like, Google them or look them up in your textbook. But those are things associated with the AV valves. We can't see them in this lab. Okay. Ta-da. So that's the heart. That was relatively painless, wasn't it? Now, look at these next two paragraphs. I have chief cardiac vessels with primary branches, and then chief abdominal vessels with primary branches. And so why did I do this? Well, cardiac and abdominal, so these are like the main blood vessels in and around the heart. Basically those that you would find in the thoracic body cavity, okay, for the most part. And then all these down here are all those that you find in the abdominal body cavity. And so I kind of divvied up like that. And so you can, we looked at these heart models, you go, oh, we're done with the heart models. But if you look closely, the heart models are portraying a bunch of blood vessels. So you need to go back and look at them again to see a lot of these blood vessels, okay? For example, look right here. Whoops, didn't want to do that. Right here, I have the superior vena cava. Superior vena cava, this is a big blue one that drains all the blood from above the heart. And it's coming down and it's dumping its blood into the right atrium. And so you can see it right here, right there, right here, and right there. See that? Now here's a good shot of it, superior vena cava, and then you can see where it opens up into the right atrium, okay? Now, R and L, right and left brachiocephalic veins. Brachiocephalic means like head and arm and head, brachiocephalic, get it? These two veins are what come together to form the superior vena cava. So this is the, you look right here, this is the right brachiocephalic vein, and this is the left brachiocephalic vein. And here you can't see it's chopped off. This one you can, there's two, 1, 2 right there. Those are brachiocephalic veins right there. And there they are again. And that's it. But I think the only place that's pointed out is like right here. That's good. Then the internal jugular vein. Now, the internal jugular veins and the subclavian veins, those are what come together to form the brachiocephalic, but you can't see them here because they're chopped off. So you have to go to the torso model right here. Again, look right here. There's the superior vena cava, and here's the brachiocephalics right here. And then, see, here's a brachiocephalic from here to here, and then from here to here. And this one come together to form the brachiocephalic. And so this is the internal jugular right there, that little branch right there. And this blue one coming out like that, that's the right subclavian. Of course, the left subclavian would be over here. See how that works? Then the inferior vena cava. So here's the heart that's missing, right? In the inferior vena cava, here's the liver, there's the diaphragm. See the little blue thing right there? That's going to be coming through the diaphragm and entering the bottom of the heart, basically the bottom of the right atrium. And to see that, you can look like right here. This is like the back of the heart, superior vena cava. Little ring right there, that blue ring, that's the inferior vena cava. That would connect right here. See that? So there's the inferior vena cava there, inferior vena cava there. And of course, what you see in the front is the right atrium. Can't see it there. Can't see it there. Can't see it there. So, you know, so I got different angles, different views of the heart. Mostly from the back of the heart is a good place to see it. It's right there. And that's it. Oh, wait. Okay. You see this. Now look at this. This is a torso model. You know, it's like a life-size mannequin. We have these in lab. And then here's one. This is abdominal body cavity, but this is showing you the inferior vena cava. Right here, it starts right here. It comes up, 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 and then they chop it off right here. But just on the other side of this would be the diaphragm. So they'd go through the diaphragm right there. So this is also inferior vena cava. So inferior vena cava here, inferior vena cava there, and inferior vena cava there. So you can see it in a few different places. Okay. Now, the pulmonary trunk. Pulmonary, anytime you hear pulmonary, think lungs. And remember, trunk is a large artery. Now, I know a lot of times when you hear artery, you think, oh, it's one of those red vessels. But don't fall into that trap, okay? Because that's true. Most of the time, arteries are red. Most of the time, veins are blue. That's not always the case, particularly when you talk about the pulmonaries. Because the pulmonary trunk, a trunk is an artery. And what do arteries do? What makes an artery artery? It's not the color. It's not the oxygen content. It's direction of blood flow. So it's a blood vessel carrying blood away from the heart. So if it's a pulmonary trunk, a pulmonary artery, right? It's carrying blood away from the heart toward the lungs. Okay, think about that. Away from the heart toward the lungs. Why would you want to send blood toward the lungs? Well, your lungs are for respiration. It's respiration to get oxygen. So if you're sending blood to the lungs, you obviously need oxygen. And so that blood that's going to the lungs is deoxygenated, doesn't have oxygen in it. And we represent deoxygenated blood with the color blue. And so anytime you see blue, that's deoxygenated blood. It doesn't mean artery, doesn't mean vein, it means deoxygenated. And likewise, everything that's red is oxygenated. It has oxygen in it, so it's red blood, oxygenated blood, okay? Now, all blood, you know, if you look at it in life, is red. There's no such thing as blue blood, unless you're like royalty, you know, something like that. No, that's nothing. Anyway, but you take blood out of your arm, it's red. It doesn't matter if it's an artery or a vein or whatever, it's gonna be red. Now, it is true, oxygenated blood is a brighter red. It's vibrant, more vibrant than venous blood, but it's still all red. But on models and diagrams and so forth, when they color code things symbolically, you know, they show you red versus blue, and that's to tell you oxygen content. Okay, so pulmonary trunk carrying blood to the lungs, it's going to be what color? A pulmonary trunk. It's an artery carrying blood to the lungs. Think about that. What color would the pulmonary trunk be? Anybody? Anybody? Unmute yourself if you think you know. The pulmonary trunk would be what color? I'll give you a hint. Pulmonary trunk. What color is that? It's blue. Yeah, it's a blue artery. See it? It's carrying deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle up through the pulmonary semilunar valve and then up here. It's a trunk until it splits into two. It splits into the left and right pulmonary arteries. Again, the pulmonary arteries are blue. See that? See pulmonary trunk, and then right and left pulmonary artery. You can see the left one right here. The right one is tucked up underneath the aortic arch right there. Here you can see them in the back. This would be the right one, and there's the left one. These are the right and left pulmonary arteries in the back. Again, left one and the right one. And here's the left one right here. Pulmonary trunk, left pulmonary artery, etc. And then pulmonary trunk right there. Okay, there's that. Now, look, I have ascending aorta, aortic arch, thoracic aorta, and then down here I have abdominal aorta. So you have 4 aortas? Yes. Well, actually I have 1 aorta. It's divided into 4. 3 of them are in the thoracic body cavity. And then the one that's by itself in the abdominal body cavity is the abdominal aorta. And so, but if you, it all starts right, let me go down here. Well, yeah, it doesn't matter, I guess. I can just, well, where do they point it out? Oh, here we go. Right here, see ascending aorta right here. What it begins at the aortic semilunar valve when it comes up. It's like the straight part that's ascending straight up. This is carrying oxygenated blood, red blood, from the left ventricle right here. This blood right here goes up, and you can't see, but right about here, there's going to be another semilunar valve. That'd be the aortic semilunar valve. That's going to open up into this. Okay, this is the ascending aorta right here. Ascending, ascending, ascending. Where'd it go? Right here. This. And then it bends behind the heart. It goes behind the heart, and that bending part is the aortic arch. And then once it straightens out behind the heart, it becomes the thoracic aorta. Let me, where do they point that out? Right here. See, here's the aortic arch. See, they removed the heart. So the ascending aorta is missing because it's on the heart. Here's the bend. And then when it straightens out, that's the thoracic aorta. Here they call it the descending thoracic. To me, that's redundant because it's just thoracic. It's the thoracic aorta until it goes through the diaphragm. Right about here, here's the diaphragm. Here's the liver, right? And so when it goes through the diaphragm, it's going to come out right here. So this is the bottom side of the diaphragm right here. And this big red one in the background, that's the abdominal aorta. So it's the abdominal aorta here, thoracic aorta here, which, you know, I guess collectively, if you want to follow suit, you got ascending aorta, aortic arch, then descending aorta. But we don't divide the descending aorta into a thoracic and abdominal aorta. Or you just, you know, this illustration says descending thoracic. I guess you call this one a descending abdominal, but here, no, they just call it abdominal. I didn't label these. But if Mr. Williams would have labeled it, I would have never included this word, descending, because that's redundant in my book. Okay, so there's that. And then the right and left pulmonary veins, and I put a parenthesis around the S, because there's not just a right one and a left one. There's multiple pulmonary veins. Now, okay, this is another thing. Pulmonary, is that word pulmonary again? Pulmonary refers to the lungs. And a vein, what is a vein again? A vein is carrying blood toward the heart, okay? Now, a pulmonary vein is carrying blood toward the heart from where? Pulmonary, from the lungs. Okay, if you're traveling from the lungs to the heart, what kind of blood are you carrying? Are you carrying oxygenated blood or deoxygenated blood? If you're coming from the lungs, you already went to the lungs, now you're coming back from the lungs. You're carrying oxygen. So what color would you paint the pulmonary veins if they're oxygenated? Red. So these are red veins. Get it? All right. So come back up here. Look, here's the left ventricle that pumps blood out, right? And then look, this is the left ventricle pumps oxygenated blood, right? It receives its blood from the left atrium. The left atrium receives blood from the lungs, and these vessels right here are coming from the lungs. These are the pulmonary veins. These are the left pulmonary veins right here that open up into the left atrium. Here's some right pulmonary veins, left pulmonary veins, and so right here, this is the left atrium. See that? Again, pulmonary veins, pulmonary veins, pulmonary veins. Two little pulmonary veins in the background. Can't see any there. That's it. Don't screw that up. Make sure you know your veins and your arteries and your oxygenated and deoxygenated and your pulmonary versus whatever. Okay, pulmonary veins. Now, look at this. The brachiocephalic trunk, I have in parentheses artery. Again, remember, a trunk is an artery, but a big artery, brachiocephalic trunk. And then you have a right and left subclavian artery and a right and left common carotid artery. I put all these together because these are the branches of the aortic arch. See, here's the human aortic arch right here. And I say human because not all aortic arches have the same number of branches, but in the human, there's three: 1, 2, 3. The first branch going from, right to left. This is the right side. This is the left side. Right here. This is the brachiocephalic trunk, although they label it an artery. I call it a trunk, and you should call it a trunk too. Now, you only have one. There's only one brachiocephalic trunk, but remember there's two brachiocephalic veins, right? You can see them right here, brachiocephalic veins. Here's the right one, here's the left one, and here's the brachiocephalic trunk. It's going to go up and supply blood basically to the right side of the right arm and the right side of the head, okay? This one in the middle is the left common carotid artery, okay? And this one on the far left is the left subclavian artery. All right, you see that? Here they are again, but this is the back of the heart. Here's the brachiocephalic trunk, left common carotid, left subclavian. And kind of see it here again. Left subclavian, brachiocephalic trunk, left common carotid, left subclavian, etc. They don't label them, but that's what they are. Now, come down here, and you can see what they do. Here, again, here's the aortic arch. Right here is the brachiocephalic trunk, but it's underneath all this blue. Remember that said veins are usually more superficial than arteries. And then here's the common carotid, the left common carotid going up. It's going to go see the trachea in the background, so it's going up parallel with the trachea. Right about here, the brachiocephalic trunk splits into two. It splits into a right common carotid. See, that's basically this one and this one are doing the same thing. On either side of the trachea. The trachea is in the middle, common carotid here, common carotid here. This is the right one, this is the left one. The other half of it splits off and goes out towards the shoulder, okay? That's the subclavian. So this is the right subclavian artery underneath here, underneath the right subclavian vein. And it's underneath the clavicle. See, they clipped off the clavicle right there. The clavicle will be covering it up here. And here's your other clavicle. And so this long one right here, the blue one, would be the subclavian vein, and then the left subclavian vein, and then there's the left subclavian artery right here that's coming off the aortic arch. See this one comes off the aortic arch. This one comes directly off the aortic arch. But right here, that's the trunk. That's the trunk, and then you can't see where it splits, but it splits right behind this blue vessel here. Okay, so there you go. There's that. I think that's the only place you can see it. Yeah. So there's that. And then the right and left coronary artery, the anterior intraventricular artery, and then all these other things that minus the coronary sinus, great cardiac vein. Yeah. These are all that's coronary circulation. And let's see where I point out all this stuff. Right here to begin with. If you look, let me show you right. I guess this is, remember, here's the ascending aorta from here to here before it bends. See that? And there's only two branches that come off the ascending aorta. You don't hardly see them, but you can see right here. See this red one coming off right here? That's the right coronary artery. And then there's a left coronary artery coming off over here, but it splits into two. Half of it comes down the front, the other half bends around. And let me see where, there's the coronary sinus. That's the vein in the back. Yeah. Well, right here, see the right coronary coming out like that. Left coronary comes out, but it splits into two. So it splits into this one coming down the front right here. That's the anterior intraventricular artery. Here they call it the anterior intraventricular branch of the left coronary. the same thing. But coronary artery, anterior and ventricular artery. The circumflex, that's the other half that bends around here. They don't label that, so just don't worry about that. And then the coronary sinus, the great cardiac vein. Okay, the great cardiac vein, that's the big blue one. Here they show it split. It doesn't always look like that. It's usually like this, just one big blue one in the front. Okay, it's a great cardiac vein, which is basically the equivalent to the anterior interventricular artery. The anterior interventricular artery is in the front, great cardiac vein. See, it should be way up here. They kind of drew this split a little bit too early, I think. But this is the great cardiac vein here, and it's the anterior interventricular here before they split. But anyway, the great cardiac vein comes back, and it's basically collecting all the blood from the surface of the heart, and it comes around and it dumps in the back. This is the coronary sinus. All the little blue vessels on the surface of the heart drain into the coronary sinus, and the coronary sinus dumps into the right atrium. I think you can see it. Well, you can't. Here's the right atrium. If you could look in from the side there, I guess like this, I can point like that. There'd be another little hole right there, and that's where the coronary sinus dumps in. Okay. So that's that. That's all the chief cardiac vessels of their primary branches. Okay. Now, I'm going to look at the abdominal vessels with their primary branches, beginning with the abdominal aorta. This is all in the abdominal body cavity. Everything you're going to see is going to have to be right here. So I'm going to click on this. I don't think I can make this any bigger. It's just kind of the best picture I can get. But see this muscle in the background? That's the top of the, well, you're looking up at the inferior surface of the diaphragm. Okay, and then there's a little opening right here where the aorta comes through. So from here to here before it splits is the abdominal aorta. Okay, and then I have common iliac A and V, external iliac A and V, internal iliac A and V. Of course, A and V stands for artery and vein. And that's what you see going on here. Basically, here's the inferior vena cava, the abdominal aorta, and they all split. The divisions in the pelvic cavity are basically the same. The initial big splits right here, those are the common. So this is the left common iliac artery. This is the left common iliac vein. Right common iliac artery, right common iliac vein right here. And then there are divisions, the ones that are the small ones that stay inside the pelvis. Those are the internal iliacs. So this little red one on the inside, this one would be the left internal iliac artery, left internal iliac vein, right internal iliac vein, right internal iliac artery. And then the other halves right here that are coming out, those are the external iliacs. Here's the external iliac vein on the right side, and the external iliac artery on the right side. And here they are on the left side, the external iliac, internal iliac, internal iliac. See how that works? So there you go. They're all right there. I talked about those today in my lecture. So that's that. And then next I have the celiac trunk. Now the celiac, there's trunk, there's that word again, trunk, large artery, right? And the word celiac means coelom, like body cavity, in the abdominal pelvic body cavity, this major body cavity right here. That's like the main vessel going to the body cavity. And then what you have your digestive viscera in there. And so the bulk of your digestive viscera that's in this vicinity anyway is supplied by the celiac trunk. But they don't really show you celiac trunk as much as they do the branches of it. But right here, this is what happens in all mammals. All mammals have a diaphragm, and only mammals have a diaphragm. And the first thing the abdominal aorta does is it produces one of three unpaired branches. Here's you go. a branch here, a branch here, and a branch here. These are the 1, 2, 3 unpaired branches. The first unpaired branch is the celiac trunk, which is, it splits into 3. It has a branch going to the stomach as the gastric artery, as a branch going to the liver as the hepatic artery. Here they call it common hepatic, that's fine. They have a branch right here going to the spleen as the splenic artery. So 1, 2, 3, gastric, hepatic, splenic, the 3 branches of the celiac trunk, okay? And then the second unpaired branch, I say unpaired because there's only one of them. It's not like a left and a right, see? See, there's one right here, and then there's one right here. The second unpaired branch is the superior mesenteric artery. They cut it off here because they removed all the intestines. And so if you follow this one out, it would go basically to the small intestines. And then small intestines travel, right? And then down around here, you have your large intestine. And so that's what this one is. The inferior mesenteric goes off to the large intestine, okay? That's the only place you can see it. So then the hepatic portal vein, hepatic, that's liver, right? You don't see the liver in here at all. So you're gonna have to go back and try to find a liver model. And let's see. Oh, look, here's some other stuff. I forgot about all this stuff. Here's a liver, okay? This is a blood supply to the liver. If you look up underneath the liver, this is looking up underneath the liver. So if you look, say, like the liver intact, like right here. So here's your liver. You take it out of the model here and turn it upside down. This is what it's going to look like. See that? And underneath, this is where all the blood supply to the liver comes from. You say, well, what is this big blue one in the background? Well, this blue one in the background, that's the inferior vena cava. Because remember, you take out the liver, and behind it, like right, see, here's a liver, the inferior vena cava right there, right there. You flip it up, you can see it here. Okay. Anyway, it's the blood supply to the liver. And also, you can see, we'll talk more about this when we talk about the digestive system, the biliary system where your gallbladder and the bile ducts and so forth are located. But you can see there's a blue vessel here and this red vessel here. This is all blood coming in. Notice that the red one is much smaller than this little blue, this big blue one, I guess. It's not as big as this one, but it's bigger than this. This is blood supply to the liver by the hepatic artery and the hepatic portal vein. The hepatic portal vein drains all the guts, okay? And so right here, that's where the all the blood from the intestines and the stomach and stuff comes in. That's the hepatic portal vein right there. And this is the hepatic artery, which is a branch of the celiac trunk, okay? Now, I have superior mesenteric artery, inferior mesenteric artery, hepatic portal vein, superior mesenteric vein. Okay, right here. Now, where else? I'm trying to think. Oh, here it is. This is looking at digestive hepatopancreatic anterior. So this is the small intestine. This is the pancreas. This is the spleen. You can see some blood vessels going on in there back, but if you look at the back, I think it looks better. Here's the hepatic portal vein. This is what is going up to the liver. That's the hepatic portal, okay, right there. And if you look, the hepatic portal is formed by all these vessels coming together. You got this one coming up right here from the small intestine. That's the superior mesenteric vein. And it's running parallel with the superior mesenteric artery. It's blood to the small intestine, this blood from the small intestine. Get it? And this one, superior mesenteric artery, is one of those 3 unpaired branches. This is the second unpaired branch. Then here's the inferior mesenteric vein, which is draining the large intestine, okay? And then this is coming across as the splenic vein. These two together form the gastrosplenic. Do I have that one up here? I have gastrosplenic vein, but they don't label it. So this one and this one forms the gastrosplenic. Okay, well, I might have to fix that. Anyway, there's that. Inferior mesenteric vein. Inferior mesenteric artery. Yeah, dude. Here's the vein and the artery. Let's see. Here's this. They don't show you the artery on. Yeah, no, they do right here. Here's the vein and the artery, superior mesenteric. They don't show you the, not in this view, the inferior mesenteric artery, but you can see it on the torso model, right here. See, inferior mesenteric artery. There's 3 unpaired branches: celiac trunk, superior mesenteric, inferior mesenteric. Okay, and then that's that. And then the last thing I have are the renal A and V. Of course, renal, you have renal, think kidneys, right? Here's your kidney, red one to the kidney, blue one to the kidney. Renal artery, renal vein, right there. Find some other kidneys somewhere else. Maybe. That's about that. I think that's the only place you can get kidneys going on. So the only place, one here. I gotta have. Oh, you know where it is? It's way down here. I maybe I have some more kidneys. Back in the urine. Yep, there we go. Right here. Right kidney, left kidney. Renal vein, renal artery, renal vein. You can't really hardly barely see little branches of the renal artery right there. And then here's another model of the kidney, of course, artery, vein, like that. That's it. The lymphatic system, that's a circulatory system, but it's, you're not circulating blood, you're circulating lymph. And you have lymph vessels, or they're just called lymphatics, and you have lymph organs, and it's a whole collection of things, but on the models, it's kind of limited to what we can see. And the spleen is part of the lymphatic system, part of the circulatory system, the endocrine system. It's in a few different systems, but its main contribution, I guess, would be as a lymph organ or part of the circulatory system. And so the spleen, where's the spleen? Well, here's the spleen right there. So why is it part of the circulatory system? Well, it serves, it serves by filtering lymph, I guess you can say, but it acts as a blood reservoir. It's a very vascular organ. Okay, it contains a lot of blood, and it helps maintain your blood volume. If you need more blood in circulation, it comes from the spleen. If you got too much blood in circulation, you say, well, how would you have too much blood? Well, if you change the blood volume, you can alter your blood pressure. And so if your blood pressure is too high, your body can compensate by that by taking some blood out of circulation if it can, and it'll help drop your pressure. So anyway, but here's the spleen. I had to mention the spleen some kind of way. So here's the spleen here. See it right there. There it is right there. Not labeled, but there it is. And I think that's it. Then these other lymphatic things that they're not pointed out, so I just scratched them. And that's it for this week. I think I'm saving all this. I guess we could do it today, but no. 45 minutes, that's good. It's a good lab. Normally, like in a face-to-face lab, to point all these things out on a model in person takes about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. But looking at pictures like this in 45 minutes or so, so that's not too bad. But do you guys have any questions about anything? So next week we'll do respiratory and digestive. next week. So the rest of this handout and the first half of the last handout. Okay. No questions? I mean, you can unmute yourself and ask me a question if you want to. No? All 10 of you? Let me see. I can see you now. Well, you're starting to disappear. Okay. Well, I will see you guys next week. Bye.